right, this is Carrie Taylor, and she is a registered nurse at Medical City Children's in Dallas. All right. So, what do you find unique about your career field?
Nursing is a career that literally is a calling, I feel. I've always felt like that. So I think it's really unique because we are able to care for people in need, and we're at the bedside in their worst times. And so I think being able to love on them and care for them is really important. I don't think there's a lot of careers that offer that other than nursing and healthcare.
All right, what sacrifices have you had to make to succeed in this field, and do you feel like the sacrifices were worth it?
Yeah, so I actually graduated from A&M, and then I went to nursing school after Texas A&M after I graduated, and so the sacrifice I had to make was, and all my girlfriends were entering into the career field, well, I had to go back to school, and so I had to work full-time and go to nursing school, and so the sacrifice was that I didn't have a life for like 2.5 years. But yeah, it was worth it, absolutely, because I've been a nurse for almost 12 years now, and I still, to this day, absolutely love what I do.
All right. What skills or personal characteristics do you feel contribute most to success in this career?
Yeah, like I said, kind of in the very beginning, like it's a calling, and so what do I feel like our personal characteristics are is that you've got to love it. Like there's no way that you could actually go to work and not, if you didn't love what you did, I don't think you'd survive, because you're caring for the sickest of the sick, and you're really at their worst moments, and you've got to have a passion and a drive and compassion for them. Like there's those characteristics I think are so key, and not to mention really a positive attitude. I think they're in their worst moments, and I think if you bring to the table, Nurse Cratchity, who is grouchy and like, you're already sick. Like if I was a patient, I put myself in their shoes I try to every day. And if I have a positive attitude and I make it fun and I make it enjoyable and I control their pain and I do things that are helpful, then I think the outcomes mentally for them is such a battle.
Yeah, absolutely. What does the employment outlook like in your career field, and how much demand is there for people in this career?
Well, there will always be sick people.
Yes.
And so the demand will always be there because there will always be sick people. And then the first part of the question, what was it?
It was what is the employment outlook like?
Employment outlook, again, yes, there will always be sick people. So it's great. The employment outlook is wonderful. Yes. Nurses will always be in need.
And what is the most important thing that someone planning to enter this career should know?
That it's really hard. That it is. It's hard work. That it is. There are, again, in the previous questions, there's a lot of sacrifice. When you choose nursing, there's a sacrifice to it, because you're mentally exhausted, you're physically exhausted. There's been a couple of 12-hour shifts that I've worked in the past that, using the restroom or eating is like, well, you might be able to do it in, oh, never mind, just kidding. They really try to make the ability for that to happen, obviously, but they're sick people, and they come first, and the sacrifice that you make is that you're there for 12 hours, and you are the advocate for that patient, and it's your job to maintain the safety of that patient and to maintain the health of that patient throughout your shift, and so, yeah.
What parts of your job do you find most challenging?
It's funny. I think probably one of the biggest skills a nurse needs to learn in the very beginning is time management. And I think that is, if you can learn time management, then everything else sort of falls into place. But I think as a beginning nurse, like in the very beginning of my career, I think that was probably one of my biggest hurdles, was learning how to time manage and appropriately triaging, if you will, what is the necessary things that have to happen, and then ordering those according to importance. Probably post in my career, one of the hardest things is, or one of the biggest challenges, is just how sick these patients really are. I mean, I work in a very sick, where babies are probably super, super sick. That's not always the case, right? But I think just really caring for them, and not to mention the patient, but you have now family members that you have to deal with. So not only mentally are you exhausted from focusing on saving your baby's life, but it's also you've got to deal with the family members. And so I think that's been a really big hurdle that I've had to learn, is dealing with the family members and caring for them too, because they're just as important as the baby.
What are the typical entry-level job titles and functions?
Registered nurse would be the job title, and then the functions basically are just what was the question? The functions?
Yes.
So, what does a nurse do?
Yeah.
Okay. Gosh, we wear many hats. That's what I thought you said, and I was like, wait a minute, really? Because there's a lot to that question. But yeah, just there is a lot to that question. But nurses, pain management is super important. Mentally caring for the family is just as important, like I said in the beginning, as caring for your patient. Whether it be a baby or an adult, doesn't matter. There's a lot to that too. There's a lot of social aspects that need to be handled. There's a lot of physical aspects, like recovering the patient. I think one of the biggest things that a nurse has to do when caring for any patient, whether it be a baby or an adult, is ordering the importance of how do I get this patient in my 12-hour shift to the best health that I can. And thinking outside the box, not just thinking tasks, what do I need to do task-wise, but thinking outside the box, what does this patient need? Do they have a wound that looks a little, oh, that doesn't look right? Do I need to contact wound ostomy or talk to the physician about contacting wound care? Do I need to, the baby's not tolerating feeds, do we need to adjust that and talk to the physician about that? I mean, there's just so many things, I think, that go into nursing that we have to think outside the box a lot of times. It's not just task, pass out meds. It's there's so much more to that. So nutritional needs, mental needs, physical needs, getting the patient out of the bed, or getting the baby, if it's a baby, into the mama's arms. How can I facilitate that? There's a lot of protocols that nurses have to follow, and so one of the protocols, if the patient is intubated, you have to follow it's called a VAP, ventilator-assisted pneumonia protocol. Basically, it's to prevent patients, adults and children, from having pneumonia by doing oral care, things like that. So I think learning what the hospital policies are, and then what the standards of care are, and across the board standards of care are the same, but hospital policies in which we achieve those can vary a little bit. So I think, again, we wear a lot of hats. It's a fun career because you really do have to think outside the box a lot.
And what types of training do companies offer those who enter this field?
Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities for advancement. If you go right out of high school and you go straight and do an associate degree nursing, most of the time they're hiring bachelor degree nurses. But if you are an associate degree nurse, they will pay for you to go back to school. And a lot of times now it's actually becoming a requirement that you fulfill it within X amount of months or years. But if you're a bachelor degree nurse and you want to go back to school, they'll actually offer a lot towards master's program, books, and the actual program, the school. So it's great because I think it's so for us. Like, I think the hospitals in general, particularly the unit I work in, is so pro nursing. Like, they want their nurses to really grow and develop themselves and succeed. Well, why? Because they want to make better patient care. But the more the nurses know, the more power that we have of knowledge, then I think the idea and the theory is that the better patient care will provide. In my opinion, I think it's true.
I agree. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.